Hello. It feels so good to be back. If you don't know, my name is Ari Gonzalez. I'm the founder of Dare and Defy, and you are tuning in to the Run It Back podcast. We are officially in season 2. This is the first episode of season 2. It's 2024. There's a bunch of new things that are going on with Dare and Defy, and I'm super excited to be bringing back this pillar in the brand of music industry news and podcasting. So I'm super excited to get into today. We have a bunch of cool stuff to talk about. 2024 Grammys, 2024 Super Bowl halftime show, which happened yesterday because we are filming today on February 12th. And a bunch of other stuff. We're going to talk about Meg Thee Stallion. We're going to talk about UMG splitting with TikTok and kind of holding their relationship on pause for now, and a bunch of other things. So with that being said, let's just get right into it. If you don't know, we review independent music every single week on this podcast, and all of that music is taken into consideration for our blog, for our radio show, whether that's foreplay or if we invite you to come on and do an interview. And then also, of course, the review, getting, the review posted to social media and getting content out of that and all of that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in submitting and having a review done and possibly played on the radio, playlisted, all of that good stuff, make sure that you head over to dareanddefy.net/submit-music, or just go to the website and navigate. You will find it, I promise you. So with that being said, the first and only submission of this week, because we've had a lot going on. We've been promoting a lot of different things recently. So, we put out submission graphics and promo 3 days ago. So this single submission I'm happy with, and we're trying to keep everything for season 2 at an hour period, because I know we've gone 2 hours before on this podcast, and we're going to try to keep everything as bite-sized as possible. Make sure we're giving you only the best information, and of course the song submissions can take up quite a bit of time. So today we've only got one, and I'm super excited. We are talking about someone who has submitted a bunch of music. I know their manager, Chase, who I have a great relationship with. We went to college together. I love him very much. But he managed an artist called Dia Deltruce, who is a beautiful songbird, and she's also just super bubbly and cute and sweet, and I love her as a person. And they submitted a song called Melt that was just put out, I believe, on the 9th. So I'm super excited to be talking about this. And I'm going to be so for real. I got this, submitted through the website, opened up the file, and I was working on some other things because I tend to do that. I tend to multitask, especially when I'm doing reviews, because I'm getting the vibe, and doing other things. But with that being said, I thoroughly, for a moment, was like, is this a Kehlani song? The way that her vocals are mixed on this is insane. It is a lo-fi mid-tempo R&B love song, and Dia is definitely, that is her lane, is ethereal lo-fi R&B. That is kind of where she thrives, and her voice just really was so beautiful on this song. And I feel like this is one of the more pop hits, something that I can truly hear on the radio from Dia, and I really, really enjoyed hearing it. The mix was great. Everything about it, from the melodies to the songwriting, was really, really engaging. And I was super excited to hear this from Dia, because I do know them in real life, and because she's awesome. So having awesome music just makes everything better. So with that being said, I am going to be playing Melt by Dia Deltruce on Indie Jams the 25th, which is our next radio show. And I'm going to be playlisting all that good stuff, la-di-da-di-da. So if you, once again, would like to get your music reviewed, make sure you head over to dareanddefy.net, and we're going to move forward, okay? The next section that we're going to kind of go over, we only got one story here today. And this is about TikTok and UMG, Universal Music Group, home to artists like Taylor Swift, Drake, BTS, Bad Bunny, Ariana Grande, Olivia Rodrigo, Billie Eilish, Justin Bieber, Karol G, and many more, announced that it had failed to reach a new licensing agreement with TikTok, which will result in the removal of the company's entire catalog from videos used in the app. UMG's existing licensing contract with TikTok officially expired on January 31st, 2024. The previous day, the music giant released an open letter notifying artists that their renewal negotiations were unsuccessful, citing TikTok's unwillingness to appropriately compensate artists and songwriters, protect human artists from the harmful effects of AI, and address online safety issues for TikTok users as the main reasons for the disagreements. The company, which is the largest recording company in the world, stated that despite the undeniable exposure, TikTok accounts for only about 1% of UMG's total revenue, and concluded by saying that ultimately TikTok is trying to build a music-based business without paying their fair value for the music. In an open letter, UMG claims it proposed TikTok solutions for all issues outlined above, but they were met with indifference and intimidation. So, obviously, this is pretty big and this is pretty interesting. Now, we're getting some answers here as to, like, why did this happen? Okay, royalties, AI, licensing, that's pretty much the basis of it, right? I thought that this was really interesting, just coming at it from the aspect of, like, who is really losing in this, and I think that the answer is primarily UMG, because TikTok doesn't necessarily need UMG's catalog to thrive. There's still going to be trending audios, there's still going to be trending sounds, people are still going to create viral clips and sound bites and things like that the platform is going to be able to stand alone and progress without UMG. I also believe that UMG can progress without TikTok. I think something that was interesting that was in this snippet was that TikTok only counts for about 1% of UMG's total revenue. Now, I think if we look at that head on in terms of what TikTok is paying out for royalties, okay, that makes sense. But we also, I think, and this is being purposefully missed when we're talking about this and when we're talking about this open letter, is that the majority of the value that the music industry has within TikTok is not from tangible capital that is immediate. So we're not talking, the value within TikTok is not the royalties. The value within TikTok, as we know this, is discovery. That is really what it is. Discovery and organic marketing that is accessible and permeates culture, okay? That is what is important about TikTok. TikTok is, the social media of our age. And I think that in reality, despite UMG like being this legacy brand that, has all of the leverage in the world, we know that these new tech companies in music is really what is shifting a lot of what's going on in the industry and is kind of a precursor to what we can see in the next 5 to 10 years. And I just have this inkling that TikTok has more leverage in this situation. And like I said, I really say that just because of the titan that it is in social media and the fact that for the past 3 to 5 years, the industry has been scrambling on how to crack the code of TikTok. And now it's I just think it's very interesting. And Warner's CEO put out something a couple of days ago that was I really think that they're going to be able to get to an agreement. And I agree. I believe they're going to get to an agreement because I think that it is way more important to UMG to have a deal with TikTok than what they're kind of letting off because of the situation that we're in right now. And I feel of course, they're trying to establish their dominance within the situation. TikTok is trying to establish their dominance and their leverage within this. And I think it's really interesting. Of course, we're going to see how it plays out in these next couple of weeks. But overall, we're going to find a solution because we know that we know the powerhouse that not only TikTok but social media is. And it's going to get figured out because this is something that we also have to be cognizant of. UMG's music is still going to be on TikTok. It's not going to be properly licensed, but it's still going to be there. And Content ID will figure all of that stuff out over time. But there's how many users on TikTok? They're going to clip it. Okay? Moving forward, we have some information about deals, acquisitions, and partnerships. So first up, Meg Thee Stallion. She has been in the news a lot recently. She's beefing with Nicki Minaj. She just released her latest single, Hiss, which has hit records. And she's a bad bitch. Okay, what more can you ask for? Also, she just recently entered into a unique agreement with Warner Music Group that allows her to maintain her independence as an artist while gaining access to the company's global resources. As part of the agreement announced Friday, February 2nd, Megan will release the music through her independent music and entertainment label, Hot Girl Productions, retaining full ownership of her masters and publishing, and maintaining creative control over her releases. Additionally, the agreement allows her to bring artists signed to her imprint onto UMG's ecosystem and gain access to WMG's global distribution and marketing network. She will also continue working with Warner Music and its international affiliates. At Warner, we are creating an environment where original talents can explore both their creativity and entrepreneurialism while building long-term careers. Following on her success with 300, we're excited to continue our journey with Meg through this dynamic new partnership with our global teams, infrastructure, and expertise supporting her every step of the way. So, we'll talk about what I'm about to talk about in a second. I'm very happy for her. This is great. And this is being dubbed like in a historic deal because of the fact that it's a distribution deal and she's retaining, her name and likeness and the ability to have creative control while being with, a major label. One of the other reasons why this is pretty important and something that's been talked about a lot is because, girl, Megan Thee Stallion was with her former label, 1501 Certified Entertainment, in October after being embroiled in a long legal feud that ended with a mutual settlement. Megan alleged 1501 was preventing her from releasing new music in 2020 when she first signed with Roc Nation's management team. Then in August of 2022, Megan filed another complaint seeking $1 million in damages, citing underpayment and royalties, among other charges. So, the hot girl has been having some hot fucking issues with her labels. You know what I'm saying? So this was a great deal for her moving forward and really meant something for her being in a space where she's still working with a huge corporate entity with a lot of resources, but she is in control. And that is a beautiful thing, and I'm very happy to hear that. So I also put a quick resource in here from Symphonic that is just about distribution deals, if that's something that you're interested in. If you don't know, a distribution deal is exactly what it sounds like. It's a deal with a distribution company where they help you put out your music. That's the end of the story. They look different. Every single one is going to look different. Every single one is going to have different stipulations depending on the company, the amount of leverage that you have, a bunch of different things. But if you want to learn more about that, go check out our resource link in the description. Moving forward, Jermaine Dupri's legendary So Def Recordings has signed a multi-year agreement with Create Music Group that encompasses all of the label's recordings, publishing, and back catalog. In addition, Dupri will supervise the launch of new artists and music under the partnership and double as Create Music Group's, I believe, creative director. Yes. Concurrent with his new appointment, Dupri will segue from CEO of So Def Recordings to its chairman and founder. He, in turn, has named Brian Patrick Franklin to replace him as CEO and Joe Romulus Esquire as head of legal business affairs. Create Music Group was founded in 2015. The Hollywood-based data-driven media and technology firm has worked with the stars and global brands such as Jennifer Lopez, Marshmello, and PepsiCo. Among the media networks that Create Music Group operates are the independent music distribution platform Label Engine and the Gen Z-focused digital entertainment and marketing agency Flight House. I think this is pretty interesting and just shows how we're just continuing to go further into this space of tech and media with music, which of course it's always been a part of the industry. But we're seeing things change, of course, just with the type of technology that is existing, right? Moving forward, WME has partnered with Generative Artificial, and actually, before I go further into this is one of low-key my favorite stories, and we'll talk about why in a minute. Okay, WME has partnered with generative artificial intelligence platform Vermilio. Using Vermilio's Trace ID technology, the agency's clients will now be able to protect themselves from IP theft while having the opportunity to monetize their images and likenesses by licensing their data. Trace ID allows users to track images and likenesses, or track and authenticate the use of their intellectual property, including their voices and generative AI content, to ensure fair credit and compensation and control how their work is used by others. Talent will additionally have the chance to interact with their fans in a new and immersive ways using Vermilio, according to a press release. That is where this information comes from. WME clients will have a preferred rate and access to Trace ID, where their current and future data will be stored and protected on the blockchain with smart contracting. Vermilio will then match synthetic content with artist data to remove unapproved content and generate new and approved synthetic content to open up monetization opportunities. WME clients will also have access to Vermilio dashboard that manages their data, licenses it, and builds their own custom synthetic content engines. Ooh, that was a mouthful. Why do I like this and why am I excited about this today? Because this is a solution to the problem of AI that everyone has been talking about for ever, okay? I think this is super awesome, using AI technology in our benefit, and kind of being able to combat the negative things about AI that everyone has been talking about. That is the biggest thing for me, is once again that it's solution-based and that we're using the technology that everyone is afraid of kind of against itself. You know what I'm saying? I think that that's great. How this is explained, it's basically content ID. So if you think about content ID through YouTube and all that kind of stuff, very similar concept, but we're talking about AI. And I think this is really cool. I think it's an interesting platform. It reminds me a little bit of like disco when we're thinking about the licensing and exploitation of our intellectual property through a platform. And I think that this is really cool. If you are someone who either, number one, you're releasing music, number two, the music that you release gets a lot of traction, or number three, you're just generally worried about having your image, likeness, songs, works, whatever, stolen by AI and used for generative content, maybe you want to look into Vermilio and see how they can help you out, because I think that this is really, really cool, and I love, once again, that we are talking about a solution. Moving forward, the last little story within this section is a big one. Michael Jackson's, well, about half of Michael Jackson's estate was acquired by Sony. Or has agreed to acquire half of Michael Jackson's catalog, because the truth is that this deal is not like inked on paper yet. This has just been basically speculated for the past, like, I believe 4 or 5 months. So let's see. The deal, which has been gossiped about in the music industry for months, is said to involve Sony purchasing a 50% stake in Jackson's recorded music and songwriting catalogs. Includes not only the estate share of mega hits like Beat It and Bad, but also the music publishing assets that are a part of Jackson's Me Jack catalog. Among them, songs written by Sly Stone, and tracks made famous by artists like Ray Charles and Jerry Lee Lewis. The deal is said to value Jackson's assets at $1.2 billion or more. According to the two people who were granted anonymity because they are not authorized to speak publicly about this. Even so, it leaves some of the estate's interest in other lucrative Jackson-related businesses off the table, like the Broadway musical MJ, Cirque du Soleil's Jackson-themed shows, and biopic in the works that is set to star Jafar Jackson, a son of Jackson's brother Jermaine. The transaction is also said to leave this estate in a significant degree of control over the catalog itself. Whew. Okay, so we know that catalog acquisition has been kind of going crazy for the past, 3 to 5 years, something like that. Great, cool, awesome. It's Michael Jackson, which is why this is a hot topic in general, but also Michael Jackson has a not so good history with Sony Music. And once again, in the resource document, I linked a rant from 2002 where Michael Jackson is going in on Sony and how they mistreat artists and his personal relationship with them, and he's not really talking about them like he likes them. If you don't know, At one point, Michael Jackson also owned a 50% stake of Sony ATV Music Publishing. It was like a joint venture type of situation. And what is it, 2016? Yes. 2016, Sony bought that share back from his estate, obviously. And to me, it just kind of feels like they're like stripping everything back that Michael really like fought to have, you know what I'm saying? And there was a reason why Michael fought to have ownership over this intellectual property and why he wanted a stake in these things, you know what I'm saying? Go watch that rant and you'll kind of have a grip on this. And the funny thing is that as I'm doing research about this, because one thing about this podcast is that the way that I do things is I really try to make sure that I understand what I'm talking about, right? Okay. So I'm doing research, you know, on the history of Michael Jackson and Sony, and to get to a real life video that happened where, you know, Michael Jackson is kind of talking about the truth of how he feels about Sony, I have to get through so many articles that, you know, of course are now about this, because that's how, when we talk about one of my rules that you will eventually probably see throughout my career, is that optics reigns supreme. And this is a really good example of that, as, you know, this is a huge talking point and something that is really big in industry news right now generally. And when you go to Google and you look up Sony, Michael Jackson, either like publishing deal, or no matter how you phrase it, who's buying who and who's doing what, all you are seeing now is this specific story, and you're not really hearing or having articles and information come up about how Michael Jackson went about things and what when he was alive, how he played this situation. So with that being said, there's a lot of conversation about this, whether it's good or it's bad. It feels sad to me, honestly, like I said, because it feels like there's something being stripped from him that he cared about, and just because he's no longer here, it's like okay for some reason. But I think it's kind of like a legacy thing. Like, I think it would have been really fire for that to be something that Michael Jackson had, and his estate rather, had in his possession until the end of time. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to have his shit till the end of time. And that doesn't sit right with me, personally. Moving forward. Because we've been talking about this for a minute. Bitch, the Grammys. So, in the past, when we talk about award shows and stuff like that, I literally go through like every single person who won something, and we're not doing that today. It's not happening. We're just going to talk about kind of some main points that I personally want to hit. So, in a historic moment for the world of rap, NWA and the iconic West Coast gangster rap group have been awarded the prestigious Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. This honor solidified their legendary status in the music industry, recognizing their groundbreaking contributions to the genre. Jesus Christ. Shout out to them. Then we have Victoria Monet, bitch. I'm very proud of her. And I'm going to read this whole little excerpt through because it really exemplifies why I'm so happy for her. But Victoria Monet was nominated for 7 Grammys on the night of the Grammys, the second most nominations of any artist behind SZA. Among her nominations tonight was for Best New Artist, which is an award that she won for On My Mama. And it was also up for, an award that she won. On My Mama was up for Record of the Year and Best R&B Song. She also received nominations for Best R&B Album for her, album Jaguar 2. Best R&B Performances for How Does It Make You Feel, and the Best Traditional R&B Performance for Hollywood. This marks the first year that Monet has been nominated as a lead performer, but in previous years she picked up nominations for her work behind the scenes. In 2021, she was nominated for Best R&B Song as a co-writer of Chloe X Halle's Do It, and in 2020, her work on Ariana Grande's Thank You Next and Seven Rings netted her nominations for Album and Record of the Year, respectively. And what she won for, once again, oh, Lord have mercy, R&B Album of the Year, right? Am I going crazy right now? Yes, for Jaguar 2, Best New Artist, Best R&B Album, Best Engineered Album, non-classical. And the reason why I'm so happy for her is because she's been doing this for a long time. She's, middle-aged, she got kids, and this is a big moment for her. She's been grinding, she's been in the industry for a long time, and it's just a testament that not everybody's path looks the same, and sometimes you have to not be the star for a little bit so that you can kind of pave the road to do what you want to do. And I'm just very happy for her. I think that's awesome. Next up, I want to talk about the fact that, and I'm going to bring up two examples of this, but I feel like this year's Grammys, there were people who won who they are either number one, very early in their career, or number two, you could say are early in the trajectory of their career, okay? So, one example of that is shorty named Luffy, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. She had a beautiful little performance, and she also won a Grammy, okay? She received her very first Grammy Award for a traditional pop vocal album, and I put some other information in here about just how she got famous. Since releasing her debut single, Street by Street, as the world went into lockdown in the spring of 2020, rising musician Luffy Lin has amassed a vast following on social media and already collaborated with some bucket list musical heroes through the official releases of music and videos online. She started making music in 2020, went viral on TikTok, and she just performed at the Grammys. I need that to be understood. I need that to be understood that is possible, that happened. Is that a good thing? I don't know. I think that it means that things are happening. It means that the accessibility of the Grammys and the elusive, exclusive aspect of things is going down. I've heard a lot of different takes about award shows in general, not being as interesting as they used to be, becoming tacky as the years go by. And, I don't know. If I was invited to the Grammys, I would go and I'd probably have a good time. But I don't know how I feel about this. A part of me feels like, the Recording Academy and the Grammys is supposed to be a very prestigious, oh my goodness, there's something in my eyeball, a very prestigious organization. And something about, and I'm not saying that she's a bad musician or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But something about it just makes me feel uncomfortable. Because I feel like there's something within me that just says, there's someone who's been grinding in this industry since 2015. Even if we talk about Victoria, to me, that is someone who deserves a Grammy, who deserves a Grammy performance. She's been grinding in this industry as a writer for years. A true performer. She can sing, she can dance, visually, she is put together, everything about her is amazing. And I'm not saying that Luffy is not amazing, I just feel like there are calibers to things, and I don't know how I feel about it. So let me know how you feel. The next thing, which is kind of on a similar tip, is with Tyla. Now, as we know, Water, it was a moment in time, okay? I love the song. I think it's great, and it won a Grammy this year for Best African Music Performance, which is a new category for the Grammys. Now, once again, Tyla is another person who she has been doing this for about 5 years. She started making music in 2019, or rather her debut single, Getting Late, was released in 2019. And that had success, and it's really just been kind of up for her since then. And now she has a Grammy, and I think that's awesome. But if you really think about that, 5 years in the industry until you get a Grammy. I don't know if for some people that seems like a long time, especially because we have a lot of new artists which haven't been around for a long time but are hitting really amazing achievements and milestones, which I think is great. But there are people who do this for 5, 10, 15 years Nicki Minaj doesn't have a Grammy, bitch, okay? Like, let's be for real, you know what I'm saying? And that's not to start a whole conversation about Nicki. I have my opinions, and she is who she is, la da da. But, like, something's off. And there's always been a conversation about something being off. I'm not saying that Tyler didn't deserve the Grammy. It just, you know, life, I guess just life's not fair. And the industry's not fair. But all in all, I think that the Grammys was a great representation of what music has been in 2023 and 2024. And it was dominated by TikTok. Because let's be for real, these bitches won Grammys because of TikTok. And we cannot, like, be naive about the power that that little fucking app has over this industry. Anyways, the Super Bowl halftime show. Usher went and did his thing. I loved the costuming. And Usher is just such a seasoned performer that, like, every move that he makes is amazing to watch and is captivating. I had a great time watching it. Now, I did not like when the turn down for what moment happened. I feel like I understand the purpose of, like, the iconic moment that was, but it was iconic because I feel like it was, like, meme-ified. And when we're talking about Usher, we're talking about, like, timeless music that is going to be around forever. Like, hits for the ages. And turned down for what? It was a moment of time in time, but like I said, it's meme-ified. It felt like it's just, this is not what you're supposed, no. Like, it felt like it diluted the performance a lot. And it happened, it came on, I was like, no. Like, I was not happy with it. And then when it left, I was like, yay. I was very excited to get on with the show and to continue watching the amazingness that Usher was. The dancers killed it. I loved it. And of course, he ended with Yeah, which was a super obvious choice that definitely served his purpose by going out with a bang and just being super memorable. All right. Now we have some industry updates. The net revenue generated by the music streaming market in 2023 was nearly $36.7 billion US dollars. Over the next 10 years, the music streaming industry is expected to surge at 15.1% CAGR, concluding that a valuation of 125.7 billion US dollars by 2032. The continuous evolution of streaming technology has significantly reduced barriers of entry for consumers, enhancing the user experience through improved connectivity, audio quality, and platform interfaces. Advances in data compression algorithms and the widespread availability of high-speed internet have made streaming services more accessible and enjoyable for a global audience. So, okay. To get a grip on things, we're talking a little bit as to why streaming is continuing to grow. Okay, so a rise in mobile device usage, so people having more access to mobile phones. Changing consumer preferences, the adoption of subscription models offers a steady revenue stream for streaming platforms, appealing to consumers through premium features such as ad-free listening, offline playback, and exclusive content. This model has proven successful in generating sustainable financial growth for service providers in the global music streaming market. The individual segment covers the largest revenue share of which is 59.8%, establishing itself as the dominant force in the market. The individual segment refers to an individual consumer who subscribes to a music streaming service for personal use. This segment includes music enthusiasts, casual listeners, and individuals who prefer the convenience and accessibility offered by streaming platforms. A key trend in the music streaming market is the diversification of content to include podcasts and audiobooks and other non-music audio content. Streaming platforms are increasingly investing in exclusive podcast content and partnerships with content creators to broaden their offerings. So, basically, the bubble on technology has not popped yet when it comes to streaming. We're still kind of getting to the place where, like, everyone who's going to have streaming is going to have it. We're not quite there yet, which is why we're continuing to see growth and why there is projected growth, because more and more people are going to continue to have access to high-speed internet, mobile devices, things like that. And they're probably going to want to listen to music, so they're probably going to hop onto a streaming service. And then, of course, the aspect of having the non-music audio stuff that has nothing to do with music, but is still generating content, or revenue, rather, for these streaming services. All right. Moving forward. Luminate continues in its mission to unify data with the acquisition of Quasniak, a specialist music data company with a focus on artist identification services. Announced on February 6th, the arrangement is another step in Luminate's efforts to unify data for the entertainment industry. By tapping Quasniak's expertise in the harmonization of metadata across record labels, streaming platforms, song publishers, and artist services within the music ecosystem. Based in France, Quasniak maintains the world's largest artist identification database, which includes over 2.5 million ISNIs, or artist identifiers, and 200 million asset identifiers. I believe that I'm saying that company's name wrong, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. I think this is great. I love the fact that Luminate is just continuing to broaden the amount of data that is a part of their database, helping them bring you information about the music industry. If you didn't know, Luminate is who tracks, follows, and helps report to billboards to create like the Hot 100 and all of that kind of stuff. They are a data-driven company, and they put out information all the time, pretty frequently, but of course every year, about the music industry, the trajectory of it, what's happening, what's going on, etc. If this is your first time hearing about them, or you've never registered your music with them, I do have a link in the resource document for this week, since we are talking about it. So if you want to get on the Billboard charts, make sure you register your music with Illuminate, and maybe you can use our link to help you do that. Moving forward, Capitol Music Group Chair and CEO Michelle Jubileer, is exiting the company. She announced in a memo to staff this morning, aka February 6th, that was obtained by Billboard. Lucien Grange announced the restructure of the label groups at the company that would shift Capitol, among other labels, under the oversight of Interscope Giffen and A&M Chairman CEO John Janik. Next up, I don't like this story, and we're going to talk a little bit about it because I don't like it. The tough news continues for the music industry as Warner Music announced that it will lay off about 10% of its staff, or 600 people, in the coming weeks. The biggest percentage of the layoffs will affect the company's owned and operated media properties, including Uproxx, Hip Hop DX, Imagine, and Interval Presents. The company released its earnings early, which show a record 11% revenue growth in the quarter ended of December 31, 2023. The report also shows that the company's total revenue increased by 17%, or 16% in constant currency, with net income at $193 million versus $124 million in the prior year quarter. The Warner and Universal moves are coming as the streaming boom is leveling off. Once the pandemic lifted, that growth in streaming cratered, and as with the tech world, music companies that have dramatically increased their staff during that pandemic time are now scaling back. Now, in the statement that was given by Warner, when they talk about why they're firing 600 people, or laying off to make it sound nicer and more appealing, they really try to package this as something like lighthearted, of course, and it's obviously not. Basically, the reason that they give for this is, of course, they're selling off these media properties essentially because, number one, and the biggest thing, is that the media companies they're not conducive to the main goals at Warner right now. That's basically what was said about it. Warner wants to put a focus on discovery and development of their artists, which is, of course, what the label is supposed to do in the first place. And their media companies are, once again, not at the top of the list when it comes to what resources and things do we need to be thinking about in order to focus primarily on our roster. I get that. I appreciate that. I feel like that makes sense, you know. What I didn't like when it came to the statement that was made about this whole situation is that they were talking about how the money that's going to be saved from this is going to be reinvested back into the company. And it's like, well, fucking duh. Like, that's kind of how it works. And it just felt like really convoluted. Like, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is why this is so important for us to do. And it felt convoluted, and once again, it just felt like they were trying to make something that is truly really hard, something that's not very hard, and like take away the sting that it is to the 600 people that are going to be infected by this. Of course, I'm not running Warner. I don't know the best way to do anything, okay? But could this have been a more gradual step? Yes. Could they have kind of outlined a plan for these employees? Probably. But, you know, I think overall this will probably be good for Warner in general in terms of the company itself. Obviously, they're going to save an amount of money, and they are putting their sights on more specific goals, which I think is great. I am just super compassionate, and I feel really bad that 600 people are going to lose their jobs, and it kind of just sucks, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like they weren't, it doesn't feel like the information and the reasoning that was given. Like, if I got that information and reasoning and I was one of the people being laid off, I would literally, like, I would just really not be happy. I would probably have a lot to say, to be honest with you. Moving forward, this past Monday, February 5th, roughly 300 people across the music industry sectors gathered at Novo Theater in downtown Los Angeles for the first ever North American Music Industry Climate Summit. Beyond knowledge sharing, the summit succeeded in bringing together stakeholders in the music industry's fight against climate change, solidifying and expanding its community, and shoring up the collective knowledge base. Representatives for MSA tell Billboard that following the summit, the plan is to keep the momentum going in the formation of working groups. The MSA, led by President and co-founder Amy Morrison, Director Eleanor Anderson, co-founder and board member Michael Martin, and board member Kurt Langer, will function as admin for these groups and helping bring people together, organizing meetings, and taking notes to ensure conversations turn into action. They're also going to be doing workshops and things of that nature. A crucial part of the plan is to have employees from competing companies engage with each other in a pre-competitive environment to share information and take steps that will be necessary for all companies to enact to meaningfully address climate change. Some main takeaways from this event. Artists can do a lot, but they can't do it all. It's important for artists to talk about these things, but it is something industry-wide that we all have to be working on. That's essentially what that is saying. Practical solutions are available now. Specifically with this, they're talking about reusable cups and the company R Cup, which provides reusable cups to venues and festivals and has already eliminated 43 tons of plastic. Fan travel and emissions are the leading problem that music, has when it comes to climate. We know that 50 to 80% of music industry's carbon emissions come from fan travel. And we also know that in terms of energy use, a panel on diesel fuel noted that the quickest way to decarbonize the music industry would be to remove diesel generators from event sites, but that is not quite possible yet, something that we're working towards. And then this last part I don't like, but it says food is a crucial piece of the puzzle and action on it can happen now. And it's basically saying that we need more plant-based options. And that's cool. I just think that there's probably other things that we could do that will probably make a bigger impact, to be honest with you. Next up, 4 main takeaways from Spotify's earnings call. Number 1, Spotify is still growing. That growth is happening overseas, particularly in Latin America. Monthly active users have now surpassed 602 million, including 236 million paid premium subscribers. And overall, Spotify added about 113 million new active users last year. Spotify and the major labels are finally on the same page. We feel really good about our relationships with our music partners, said Daniel Ek, CEO of Spotify, calling them the best they've ever been. That love fest seemingly includes the streamers' new royalty calculations that exclude tracks under 1,000 plays per year from payments. So basically saying, fucking over the little guy is why the big guys are cool with each other right now, is to sum that up. Spotify still believes in its marketplace, which offers paid promotional opportunities to artists and labels as an opportunity for future revenue growth. And then superfan clubs, which Spotify tipped in a post earlier this month, which likely have to wait until there's a significant reduction in the cut Apple takes off of in-app purchases, because as of right now, with that system, it wouldn't be something that would be profitable. All right, one last story, y'all. If you can't tell, I am like running out of air. Okay, so I'm glad that we're almost wrapped with this. Okay, some indie record companies are lining up against Apple Music's plan to make larger royalty payments for tracks available in spatial audio, arguing that it will disadvantage them financially by potentially increasing the cost of mixing tracks in the immersive sound format or by reducing their royalty payouts in general. According to a new report, last month Apple announced to its label partners announcing that it would be implementing a recorded music royalty boost of up to 10% for music that had been mastered for spatial audio on its platform. The detail, however, suggests that this payout rise would come from a fixed pro rata royalty pool. So some of their partners to obtain a royalty boost, other partners, i.e. those not making music available in spatial audio, would logically see a royalty reduction. Starting with the January month-end royalty payments, explained Apple, pro rata rates for spatial audio pays will be calculated using a factor of 1 to 1, while non-spatial or 1.1, while non-spatial available plays will continue to use a factor of 1. This change is not only meant to reward higher quality content, but to ensure that artists are being compensated for the time and investment that they put into mixing the spatial. The streaming service added, and then an anonymous indie exec said it's going to benefit the biggest player, which is Universal, because they're the ones with the resources to invest in that, whereas the independent sector have just found it really hard to justify the expense of creating spatial masters. We're not in the business of chucking money just because Apple is saying you should be spending money on this. Executives told the newspaper that producing tracks in spatial audio costs an additional $1,000 per track, or around $10,000 per album. For a company like The Beggars, which has a back catalog of 3,000 albums, reproducing their music in spatial audio would amount to around $30 million, and that would only be for Apple Music, and also Amazon. And speaking of that, for Apple Music, spatial audio represents an advantage over its largest competitor, Spotify, which hasn't yet released spatial audio functionality, although Amazon Music has. And what it says is that it's a growing catalog of music in Dolby Atmos and 360 reality audio. Deezer and Tidal also signed up for 360 reality audio when the technology launched in 2019. So, why is Apple doing this? I think that sums up kind of why, because spatial audio is Apple's differentiating factor in the market. That is what is really helping them stand out over any other streaming platform. So they're putting a focus on it, and that's why they're doing this, because they want more artists to do it. With that being said, I'm tired, I'm out of breath, and I need some water. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of season 2 of Run It Back. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and I will see you next week.